Добрий день, ми готові? Добрий день, друзі. Я знову вас вітаю.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome again at Ukraine Media Center. We are working for you, and we are continuing a series of our briefings. Now we have Oleksandr Motuzyanyk, spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. He will tell us about the current situation on the front line. You're welcome. Hello, everybody. As traditionally, we provide for you up-to-date information at noon today, March 24th, about the heroic fight of Ukrainian people against Russian invasion. So this has been the 29th day of the heroic resistance of Ukrainian people against a full-scale armed aggression by Russian Federation. The enemy continues to incur significant losses. And to compensate for them, Russian invaders draft reservists, officers, sergeants, and soldiers, and they continue to engage mercenaries being recruited by private military companies in Russia. In order to recover their capacity, the leadership of the armed forces of Ukraine has decided to take from reserves old military equipment and send it to military units to try and recover their capacity. In the territories temporarily occupied by the enemy, there have been numerous cases of taking cargo vehicles and special agricultural vehicles from private people, from farmers. According to information we have, the military and political leadership of the Russian Federation has decided to adjust their plans of further military operation in Ukraine because the goals set before the start of this invasion, this war, have not been achieved. During the last 2 weeks, more than 20 military industry companies in Russia have been forced to completely or partially stop their operations because of lack of parts and components. In particular, manufacturing of aviation missiles has been suspended in Wimpel Research and Production Company. At the same time, the Russian military leadership realizes that the existing forces and troops are not sufficient, clearly insufficient to keep those territories, temporarily occupied territories, so they have been sending weapons to the Republic of Belarus and temporarily occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea from other military districts of Russia. Their goal is to try and prepare and implement offensive action in order to siege the city of Kyiv. In Volyn, Polisia, and Siversk directions, the enemy has been forced to stop their offensive action. Now they have been regrouping their troops and trying to use their forces to keep the existing positions. Military units of the armed forces of the Republic of Belarus continue to be engaged in covering certain areas of Ukrainian-Belarusian border. The enemy's units are also trying to occupy Chernihiv and to get the city of Slavutich, but to no avail. In Slobozhanщina area, the enemy continues to block the city of Sumy, and in the area of Kharkiv, the invaders have not been carrying out any active combat action. Instead, they have been destroying civilian infrastructure in the city. In Izum area, the enemy again made no success. They incurred losses and withdrew to the southern part of the city. In Donetsk area, Donetsk direction, the enemy has not stopped their attempts to attack, trying to get to administrative boundaries of Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. In southern Bug direction, the enemy has been defending, trying to recover their capacity to replenish their ammo and fuel in order to then renew the offensive action. At the same time, military units of the armed forces of Ukraine have made a strike against big landing ships of the of Russian Navy in the port of Berdyansk. As a result, there has been a fire in 1171 type big landing ship, and the ammo detonated there. As a result of this successful operation, successful action of Ukraine military are still to be clarified. Also, I'd like to provide for your attention numbers of enemy's losses as of yesterday, starting from February 24. So approximately their losses have been as follows. Manpower, about 15,800, 530 tanks, 1,597 armored personnel carriers, and 280 artillery systems, 82 multiple launch rocket systems, 47 air defense systems, 108 military aircraft, 124 helicopters, 1,133 cars and trucks, 4 ships and boats, and 50 tactical level drones, 16 special vehicles. So we trust in our armed forces. We'll win together. Keep calm. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you, Oleksandr. Dear journalists, do you have any questions? If any, you're welcome to ask those. Please use the microphone.
I'm Tim Judah from The Economist and the Financial Times. With regard to the Russian naval ship, can you tell us how it was attacked? Was it attacked by a missile, or was it attacked by attaching mines to the side of the ship? That's the first question. And the second question is that yesterday there were stories that Russian forces in Bucha had been encircled. Is that true? Thank you.
Sorry, have been encircled where? I didn't hear you.
Encircled in Bucha.
Друзі, дякую за питання.
Thank you for your question, dear friends. About the successful operation by Ukrainian military armed forces in Berdyansk. One of the Russian ships cannot be restored, and also several other ships have been affected by, we have to clarify the information. We cannot disclose the detail of this operation. Basically, it's not that important which particular tools were used to make those losses to the enemy, but we can tell you for sure that this operation has been a success. Now about combat action at the outskirts of Kyiv. Again, I cannot disclose any details. There's a lot of information being published on the internet, but let's be patient, and all this information will later be provided to the journalists and the international community. Unfortunately, here again, I cannot share any details. Thank you. You're welcome.
Us from the Israeli Public Broadcasting Corporation. Do you think that the Russian will succeed to occupy here in the center of Kyiv in the next few weeks?
Ми вже неодноразово
We have said more than once that according to our intelligence data and according to the nature of that action now being carried out by the Russian troops, even though there are huge losses in manpower and equipment, they are still making some attempts to at least surround, at least to besiege the capital city, maybe to have some strong arguments in negotiations. But I can tell you that the capital of Ukraine has been well fortified. Kyiv has been defended by elite troops, elite units, highly capable units from special forces, special assault forces, as well as territorial defense units. I would like to remind you that this is a special kind of the armed forces of Ukraine. They have also been involved in defending Kyiv. Also, Kyiv, defense of Kyiv has been led by experienced officers with combat experience who have been fighting for Ukraine since 2014. So I'd like to reassure you that capital city of Ukraine is in reliable hands, in good hands. We will be defending it. Thank you.
Nikolaidis, I'm from Greek TV channel Open TV. I would like to ask you about the situation in Mariupol. What can you reveal about that? And we saw that yesterday your announcement was that the Russian troops are trying to come close to the capital city of Kyiv, but there is no succeed in this, as you said. Can you please tell us where exactly the Russian troops are right now, in Brovary or in Irpin?
Стосовно
With regard to your second question, several days ago, information about Ukrainian armed forces' success in liberating the suburbs of Kyiv was already provided to the public. I cannot tell you about the exact locations of Russian troops, but I can tell you that in some areas the enemy has been pushed away for more than 70 kilometers from the capital city. In some other directions, the enemy's units are at, say, 35 kilometers from Kyiv. Unfortunately, I cannot share any more details. Now about the city of Mariupol. The enemy was trying and has still been trying to get that city. But we can see that they are not successful in that. So the enemy has switched to destroying the city as such, just to bring it down to the ground. You know, that's their tactics. If the city does not surrender, it has to be destroyed. That's the war crime of the international scale, and the Russian Federation will be held liable for that. Mariupol is an important city, and obviously, Russia wanted to show the taking of Mariupol as their next significant victory, but the defenders stay strong there, and without being successful, the enemy has been chaotically shelling and bombing the city, trying to bring it down to the ground. Although, in tactical sense, maybe that city would not be that important for the enemy. If Russian troops try to make a ground corridor for them to occupy Crimean Peninsula, then they would be able just to circumvent that city of Mariupol. So the tactics of Russia is completely obvious. That's just destroying any city or town which does not surrender, which Russia cannot take with their existing forces. But this city is defending itself. That's all I can tell you, dear friends.
National television of Slovakia. There are speeches, rumors about that Slovakia maybe would supply Ukraine with S-300 anti-aircraft system. I would like to ask you, please tell Slovak people why Ukraine need this system and how this can help to Ukraine defense.
Thank you for this question too. Here, in this venue, I cannot comment on international military cooperation. In the same way, I'd like to ask journalists and the broad public, as much as possible, not to discuss this assistance. We have this assistance. We receive it from our partners, both defensive weapons and logistical supplies, as well as advisory support. So I cannot make any announcements, but I can tell you that Ukraine does need defensive weapons in order to defend our country, because now, taking into account the full-fledged war waged by Russia against Ukraine, one of their objectives is to destroy Ukraine as a nation, as a country. We will not let it happen. So, of course, we need weapons and assistance and volunteers. And you see that the whole nation now has joint efforts in defending its independence and territorial integrity. And I can tell you on behalf of the leadership of the Ministry of Defense of Ukrainian Armed Forces, I'd like to really thank you very much for this support from our friendly countries. And most countries are friendly countries. I'd like to thank them for support they provide to our country. Thank you. I'm Viktor Melnikov from CGTN. I'd like to ask something about humanitarian corridors in Mariupol. The matter is, on the internet we see some videos where people say that Ukrainian army did not let them go, and only the Russian army provided some corridor. At the same time, we know that there was a statement by Vadim Boychenko, mayor of Mariupol, who said that people are forced to move to Russia using that Russian corridor. So, what is your question? My question is this. How would the Ministry of Defense comment on that? Thank you for your question. First of all, I would like to ask everybody, please do not trust any information from the Russian Federation. This is all rubbish and misinformation. And it's aimed, first of all, at Russia's own citizens in order to justify what Russian government has been doing in Ukraine. Now about humanitarian corridors. The armed forces try to save people and are always standing for our people. Due to Ukrainian government, also in Mariupol, by today we have managed to evacuate several hundreds of thousands of people due to heroic actions of the armed forces of Ukraine and other components of the defense forces engaged in defending this city. The Russian Federation, on the other hand, keeps blocking humanitarian corridors. There have been cases where they would agree upon such a corridor and then they would start shelling, trying to accuse the Ukraine of that. So Russian propaganda has shown what it is. These are all lies and rubbish, which is not worth any attention. Please watch the official information from Ukrainian sources. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you, friends. I'd like to remind you that we are working for you, and now we are creating our schedule for tomorrow. You're welcome to monitor our announcements, and we will tell you through our Telegram channels, our Facebook page about the briefings planned for tomorrow.